Well, welcome everybody. Happy Tuesday afternoon. It's episode 45 of
Woohoo!
Playing with Perspective, the suspended animation podcast. And I have a very, very special guest in the studios today.
Thank
Her
you.
name is my pleasure. Her name is Ingrid Thompson from Healthy Numbers. And we're going to be talking about the two questions we need to ask ourselves before starting a business. So I'm very, very excited to get into this content and learning about these special two questions. But before I do, I thought I'd just give everybody an introduction into who Ingrid is. When someone is getting started in their business, they might feel a combination of confusion, overwhelm, and a ton of excitement. It's super easy to spend time and money on all the things that do not really matter at that moment. Ingrid is the founder of Healthy Numbers, and she has written a book about getting started in business. So you want to start a business. Ingrid provides online training and mentoring specifically for people thinking about starting their own business. She gives people a roadmap, the tools and information to navigate their way along the pathway to business startup success, to build a viable business for their future. So hello, Ingrid.
Hello, Darren. Thank you for such a wonderful introduction.
Oh, thank you. It's my
It's
pleasure.
terrific. Yes.
And I'm really, as I mentioned, I'm really getting excited to get into this content because I've been doing lots of different podcasts over the last week and they've all been very, very different. I always say my show is like a bit of a variety show. But today we're going to go back to grassroots and we're going to get into the business aspect and the entrepreneurial aspect of things. And we're going to chat about entrepreneurship, the journey of starting a business, and these powerful two critical questions that we should ask ourselves before embarking on that journey. But before we do, Ingrid, tell us a bit about you.
Well, I live in Sydney. I love Sydney. I grew up in Brisbane. My parents immigrated from the UK, actually from Ireland originally, but I was tiny when we came here, which is why I sound so beautifully Australian. And I moved to Sydney truly believing that one day I would go and live in New York or London or something like that. I really didn't imagine staying here for 30 years, which it is actually pretty much 30 years now. And I love Sydney. So I live in a lovely house. We have some cats. I love going to the beach, yoga, Pilates, but I really love business. I really love business. And I was an accountant, and I think I was drawn to that because I love numbers because they're dependable. 2 and 2 is 4. You can rely on them. You know, if you see the zeros, you know what it means, all that kind of stuff. But I found that business is more than just the actual accounting side. I never really was drawn to the tax side with all the rules and regulations. I was much more drawn to the management side of accounting, which is actually the story of business. So what is the story that numbers tell you about your business? Which is why I created a business called Healthy Numbers, because the numbers tell you about the health of your business.
They do. You can't.
And in addition to that, I've been attracted to working with a lot of health professionals. And then over the 20 years that I've been working with small businesses, I realized that a lot of people don't actually know what it takes to get into business. And so that drew me to draw on my experience and write the book, So You Want to Start a Business. And I have a popular podcast with the same name, So You Want to Start a Business. So yeah, I love clients. I love small business. After having spent many years in a large corporate environment, it was a revelation to me to see what small business actually was. So once I started working with small businesses, I realized just what a vibrant, essential part of the community it is, and the business community. You know, that's the backbone of every country in the world, really, is small business. And small business could be us, like one solo operator, or it could be 5 people or 20 people or 100 people. They're still considered a small business in Australia. So yeah.
What's considered large business? I've always wanted to know myself.
I don't know. I think I can't remember what the number is, but it's about how much revenue they make and how many employees they have. So there's a couple of different distinctions. So as far as the ATO says, there's this cohort, and then there's the ASIC sort of side of it, and then there's the Fair Work Australia side of it. So there's a few different definitions of small and large businesses.
So I thought it would be good to take a step back and, you know, a lot of people are getting into business. There's a lot of solopreneurs out there these days. starting a business should be fun and exciting. However, it can be very confusing and very daunting. And sometimes the more you read, the more confused you get. And then you think, do I really want to do this? Why is that the case?
It's such a good question. And I love that you gave me some notice for it as well, because it gave me a pause to think about it. And I think at any point in time, pretty much everybody who's thinking about starting a business actually feels the mixture of all those emotions. So they get super excited. And in any one day, in fact, in any 1 hour as a business owner, we can feel like that as well. But you get super excited about your idea. And then you think, oh, there's all these rules that I have to follow. Yeah. And then you kind of get past that and you go back to who is your client and who do you want to work with. So there's this sort of roller coaster. And if that's daunting before you even get started, then it's a taste of what it's actually going to be like when you get going. So I truly think, now that so many people have got time to think about a business, there's going to be so many opportunities for businesses right now, because of what's going on, because of things being different. Existing businesses are thinking about how they do stuff in a different way. But I seriously think the side hustle is a great option. And what that means is if you have something that you think could work, just give it a go. I've interviewed 140 something people for my So You Want to Start a Business podcast. And I ask every single person, the last question I ask is, what advice or what would you say to somebody wanting to start a business? And 99.9% of them say, just give it a crack, give it a go, try it out. Yeah. Don't quit your job. Don't quit your job until you know. But if there's nothing to lose, there's nothing to lose about a side hustle. Like, take a market stall if that's the thing. Put something out on the internet and just see if anybody wants it.
And creating side hustles these days is super easy because we have the technology. We have websites that can build for free. We have all these social media apps for marketing. So you can actually run a side hustle for basically nothing. You just need a little bit of time.
And for a lot of people right now, time is something that they have in abundance.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And the other thing I suppose about, as we mentioned, being a business person or running a business is really a long-term thing. You have to enjoy the journey because there's always going to be something popping up. There's always going to be another rule or regulation to follow, whether it's tax or some other law or what, occupation, health and safety or insurance, or it doesn't end. So you really have to just brace yourself and say, I'm in it for the long haul. It's like a opportunity for self-development and professional development at the same time. And you say, all right, that's where I'm going to go. But it's not going to be like 9 to 5, 5 days a week. Those days are over.
And if you're wanting to go into business because you think it's going to be easier than having a job, no. I think most small business owners would tell you that that's not the case. Definitely. But that said, they wouldn't swap it for anything. That they love what they do. Yeah. So just to really sort of hone in on the answer to your question, why is it daunting and why is it exciting? It's exciting because it's got so much possibility. It's exciting because you can choose what you do to help your clients. Now, lots of people can do that in their job as well. So it's not that different. If you've got a job, and I worked in 2 of the largest corporations in Australia, and I had a terrific career. Yeah. I am not a escapee who, just couldn't wait to escape the corporate world. Corporate world decided they didn't need me anymore twice. So I took the message. I didn't go back a 3rd time. But, I think if, like being in business is, if you love the idea of being able to create something and put it out into the world and take pride in what it's done. The daunting side is just what you said, the rules, the regulations, the tax. Have you got the right insurance? Have you got the right regulations? I mean, if you make a product that is to do with food, there's a whole list of things you have to follow. If you do something with children, there's a longer list of things you have to do, so like choose your business and yeah.
Absolutely. So very, very well put. So let's get into it then. I mean, what are these 2 magical, powerful key questions that we must ask ourselves and meditate on before we embark on this journey, and why?
Well, one of them certainly is a meditative question, is who am I to start a business? Right. And this goes to your core beliefs about yourself, your self-belief, your ability to sell yourself, your service, your product. And so I always say to people, you know, if you're going to get involved in something that you've never been involved in before, go and be in that. So if you want to open a flower shop, go be out there at the markets at 4 o'clock in the morning with your hands up to your elbows in ice cold water and just see if this still is going to light you up for the next 5 years. You know, like, just who are you? Do you have the tenacity, the resilience? You have to be able to wear all the hats, you know, like, and you have to juggle them all at the same time and spin plates, or however you want to think about it. You're the pricing person, you're the finance person, you're the operations person, you're the marketing person, you're the client access,
you're the delivery person, you're everything.
Yeah, you're the driver. Yeah. So you have to be the market research person. You have to read the market trends and see in potential risks. And so there's, you know, like, and then there's like, who are you? Like, if you're the flower person, you have to get up at 4 o'clock every morning. If you're going to be a baker, you have to do things at certain times. You know, so, and if the clients call you and they want something, so there's that, who is you? Who are you? And how are you going to sustain that over a period of time? So that's the first, that's the meditative question. And I have a series of, so I wrote this book, So You Want to Start a Business. And in the first chapter, there's a series of questions and a checklist to have a think about that. The second question is about the viability of the idea. And I really think this is the nub of it. That even, you know, I have a really good friend. She was a work colleague and she started a business in an area that she wasn't particularly excited about, but it's gone on to be quite successful. So you don't actually have to be in love with your business idea. Like, that's that idea about your whole passion and all of that. I agree. You have to be passionate. You have to be passionate about something. It could be your clients. It could be about solving their problem. It could be about business. There has to be a passion, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're passionate about whatever it is.
I like that. And I suppose the converse is true. You might be really passionate about something and it's just not a viable business.
Well, and you might not be a business person. Yeah. So you might be super passionate at yoga. Like, I had a client once who loved yoga, loved yoga. And I understand. I love yoga too. Anyway, about 2 years into her being in business, she never wanted to see another yoga mat. She didn't want to see another up dog, down dog, you know, one-legged anything.
She didn't want to select the sun anymore.
Because the burden of running the business actually wore her down. And it actually eroded her passion for yoga. And I think there's a danger in being passionate about the thing, because the burden of the business, if you're not excited about business, can actually wear you down.
Yeah, and that's a great analogy, is the chef or the person that loves to cook. Some people love cooking for themselves, for their family, for their friends. But if you put them into a commercial kitchen, the stress that they have to deal with in a commercial kitchen can weigh you down. It's very different to cooking in your kitchen at home.
I'm going to sneeze, and sorry, that's so personal. I was just putting myself on mute. I think it's gone now. But that is a beautiful, and maybe it was the cayenne pepper that made me want to sneeze. But that is such a beautiful example. So somebody is really good at cooking and love doing it, but when it becomes the thing, it actually changes how you feel about it. So that's the second question. Is the idea viable? Can you make money from it? And are you able to make money ongoing? And there's a lot of different ways of figuring out if it's viable.
And obviously that's what you do. You help people, you walk people through that process.
Particularly that part. I think that are you the business person part, they kind of have to do some of that for themselves. But the actual viability part is really around the numbers and around who wants it, who's your ideal client, how much are you going to charge them, will they pay, will they pay consistently, can you,
Okay, awesome. And here's a great question. When do you think is the right time to turn a side hustle into your full-time hustle?
Oh, that's such a good question. So different people will do that at different times. It has to have the financial viability. It really is the answer to that question is, once you've looked at that, and there's this sort of tipping point. And what I've seen a lot of people do is go from working full-time with a side hustle to maybe taking some holidays, taking some time off, working part-time, and then building the business up. And then there's a point where In fact, I interviewed somebody who said that when she did her tax return at the end of the year, she actually realized that she'd earned more money in the business than she had in her job, and she figured it was time to ditch the job because she was, so, and that's one of the reasons it's so important to track the finances, is like, just, is this thing a thing, is it really going to work out?
Absolutely, because it's really true. Like, I'm not a numbers person, but when I started in business, I had to get used to spreadsheets and just start tracking, in a very basic way. But now they've become my crux. I need to see my spreadsheets because I don't know what the hell is going on. And then I know to start getting stressed or to not be too stressed. So they really tell you a story, and they drive your behavior.
They sure do. And, I think it can be, it's the revenue and the expenses that gives you the profit. And are you paying yourself, and can you pay yourself? Because that's part of the question of when do you leave? Because if you're making $1,000 revenue and it's costing you $800 just to get that $1,000, that can look like, woohoo, $200. But if that's all you can afford then to pay yourself, then that's not that great. But if you're doing $1,000 and it's costing you $200, then there's $800. So now you're looking at, okay, so if I paid myself $800 a week, maybe that's a viable amount of money. So that one of the things that's super important to know is how much money do you need? And I think one of the things that I heard Steve Baxter talking about many years ago is how it can be, when you don't have a lot of other financial commitments, can be a great time to start a business, because you can live on noodles, or you can couch, you can do lots of things where you don't actually need a lot of money, because that first couple of years can in fact be very financially draining as you build the business and as you grow. And that's why the side hustle is a great way to build that following or tribe or community, whatever you want to call that.
And it makes me think how interesting and useful this period can be for us as well. If we
Fabulous.
look at it positively.
Yeah.
It's really taught us to really take stock of what we want out of life, what we need, what our expenses really should be, where we're wasting money. And then that can actually free people up to start side hustles, because they really realize they didn't need 3 cars, they just needed 1, or they didn't need a house with 5 bedrooms, 2 or 3 will do, or they didn't need to live in this suburb, or they didn't need, to go on 3 holidays a year, just 1 will do. So this can really make a difference to give people a little bit of room to start those things that'll make them happy for the future.
Well, and I think to add to that, beautiful is clothing. How much are people spending on clothing? How much do people spend on non-discretionally eating out, drinking out, and then all the other things that go with it, the hair, the nails, the beautician, all the things that we've come, because of the pattern that we've had of working. I mean, I don't know about you, Darren, but there are days when I wear the same clothes today that I wore yesterday, if I'm not seeing anybody, and I just have to put on a clean shirt when I come onto a Zoom call.
Yep, absolutely.
and there's it's not the same as when you have to go into an office or into the city, or to be part of that, because you can do the Mark Zuckerberg same t-shirt and Steve Jobs, and that's your home office outfit.
And with working with technology and working with Zoom, we've learned in this period of time how efficient that can be as well. So we can save a hell of a lot of money just not sitting in traffic, on petrol.
Absolutely.
Gaining time. So there's a lot to be said about this period for helping us build a fresh framework.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. Ooh, I like a fresh framework. Ooh, I might have to make a note of that one.
You can have that one.
I can have that one. Thank you.
So Ingrid, tell us a bit more about how you actually work with people and the structure and, all that kind of stuff.
Okay, so the first thing I think is I wrote the book. So the book is there, and in fact, the book stands alone. If somebody just worked through the book, that's pretty much, they don't need me.
Okay, wow.
They can listen to the podcast, and that's got lots of really great things in it. There's actually a workbook that goes with the book, but people don't need that either. I mean, they can buy that on the website, but they don't need to. They can just, and so let me just hold the book up one more time. So you want to start a business? If anybody wants a copy of that book, it's on my website, bit.ly/that-book. So you just put that into Bitly. So the book can pretty much do it. Like if you're the sort of person who's self-motivated. Now, not everybody is. Like some people need a little bit of extra help.
By the way, did you do an audiobook version or just it just?
No, but I have recorded. That's such a good question. I have recorded. I think there's that finger. I have recorded a number of chapters on my podcast.
Okay.
So if you'd like to listen, they're episode 75 or so, and it's there. So it's just me reading the book, and I'm kind of. So actually, that's. Thank you for asking me that, because I actually put some other bits in that weren't in the book in the podcast. Yeah, so that's what you can do when you read your own book.
Yeah, I'd love to. I'm going to later on find out which podcast episodes, and I'm going to just have it in my room while I'm in my desk while I'm talking and doing.
Oh, good. Thank you. That's great. So the other thing that I've done is I have teamed up with Jane Jackson, and we put together a masterclass, which is an online version of, there's a free version, and then it sort of upgrades into a paid version. On my website, there's a checklist, and there's also what I call is a blueprint, which is kind of like 700 things that you have to think about to actually work. Well, it's not quite 700, it's 146 or something like that.
Oh,
things to work through, like how to think about different things. It's sort of like an accompaniment to the book. And then I do work one-on-one with people. So, and the thing that I've noticed is that most people are actually pretty smart. Once they have a couple of sessions, so people might book 3 sessions with me, and they do some work, and they have a one-on-one session with me, and then they do some more work, and then they come back. And then from that, they seem to be pretty self-sufficient, because I think the sort of people who are attracted to the work I do are reasonably self-sufficient.
Fantastic. Yeah. Oh, that's great. And you just do obviously a lot of Zoom consultations.
Yeah, and it's all by Zoom. I've got clients all over the world.
Wow, sensational. Love it. Fantastic. So
time zones are the only thing that restrict me.
Yeah, I know. I'm just starting to do a little bit of small workshops and things like that in other time zones. I'm having to calculate 14 hours behind, and my head's spinning already.
There's a really good website. I can't remember. I accidentally found it one time, and it actually shows you the best time zones.
Oh, okay.
So the morning here is the afternoon in the US. So that if you're a morning person, so anything up until kind of 10 or 11 o'clock gives you afternoon, evening in the US.
Okay, very good.
You have to go really early here to get sort of like middle of the day, but Europe is difficult. Europe and the UK is hard for here, unless you're a nighttime person.
Yeah, absolutely. So US and that area is probably a bit easier.
Yeah.
Awesome. So now, Ingrid, I'd love to have an example maybe or two of maybe a client that either has come to you recently or has read your book, and how you've helped them on their journey, and a great little success story. You got anything for us?
Oh, well, I have a few actually, but let me choose one or two examples. So I used to run a course at the Sydney Community College. So, those beautiful Sydney Community College where they have the courses that are not very expensive. Yep. And people used to come to that course because they thought they might want to start a business. And it changed over the years. The first couple of years I did it, there might have been 1 or 2 serious people in the course, but I ran it for 7 years. Towards the end of my 7 years with them, the people who were coming were absolutely dead set keen to run their business. So I'll tell you about one person. So she has a beautiful idea for chai tea. Now, she's got a beautiful Indian heritage. She's English Indian. Her name's Fatima, and she runs the chai room. So, 5 or 6 years ago, Fatima, and probably even longer actually, 6 or 7 years ago, Fatima and I met when she came to my community college course. Now, over the years, we've kept in contact. She's come back to me for intermittent coaching. She's gone to see other coaches for different sorts of coaching. She's had, she's had different people help her with marketing, different people help her with pricing, different things. And, she now has, it's called the Chai Room. It's a really thriving, beautiful business based on just doing what had to be done. She was never much in love with spreadsheets either, Darren, so you're not alone there. And I know most of the people listening are probably not particularly in love with spreadsheets either. There's a few weirdos like us that are, but the thing is, once she, like you, got hooked on them, she loves knowing how much it costs her to do things. So she went to markets, she went to trade shows, and her beautiful products are now stocked in a number of outlets around Sydney, and it's it's a thriving business.
Fantastic.
And I'll just give you one other example. So I do quite a lot of work with health professionals. And a couple of years ago, I ran a couple of programs for people wanting to start a Pilates business. And so a number of the people who were absolutely bolting out of the gate to get their Pilates studios open, they actually took a step back and they worked through the activities and they thought about what they needed to do. And every single one of them has gone on to open a really successful Pilates studio. And just the other day, somebody sent me a beautiful message on Messenger. And she said, I'm having a big tidy up because I've got time thanks to COVID. I think it might have been over Easter or one of the weekends. Yeah. And she said, look at what I found. And it was a worksheet we had done a few years, only 2 or 3 years ago. And it said, where are you now? Where do you want to be in 3 years' time? And like, what's in the middle? It's a typical coaching question, is like, where do you want to go? Where are you now? What's in the middle? She took a screenshot of it, a photograph of it, and she texted it to me in a message. And she said, Ingrid, look what I just found. Every single one of those things has come true.
Wow, within that projected time frame.
And she said it's not even, I think she actually said it's not even 3 years. Wow. But she said every single thing I wanted to do. And she said, thank you so much for everything you did to contribute to that. You know, that is what makes my heart sing.
And you might have just given her 3 or 4 consultations and she might have read the book and then she was in the right mindset to go forward herself.
Absolutely. She did. She read the book. She had the online program. She came to the face-to-face program. She had a couple of one-on-one sessions and off she went.
Fantastic. I love it. How great is that?
Oh, I love it. Yeah. So, you know, I'm not for everyone. I'm not the coach for everyone. There's lots of people around, but I know that the people who do the work and who apply themselves and follow the process, there's success for them.
Okay. And you might have just answered that, but I'm just going to ask you anyway. Who do you look for in terms of your ideal client?
You see, that's why having such a range of different ways people can work with me works. So someone who actually is a bit considered, someone who's not really seat of the pants sort of person, someone who has a quiet dream to have their own business and they maybe haven't told anybody.
Okay, wow.
And so, but also people who are telling people, but so somebody who is prepared to read the book, who's prepared to work through the activities, who's prepared to take the time to consider. Now, I'm not talking about using all that as a reason to procrastinate and never actually do anything. So my people are action takers. Yes. They're smart, but they're considered.
Right, so just action takers, but they have a little bit of a strategy so they know where they're going.
Yeah. Yeah. And they've got some money in the bank so they don't get stressed about money. So, yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Well, Ingrid, that is sensational. I mean, we could chat about this stuff forever.
Of course.
Absolutely. But I'm gonna do to you now what you do to all your guests. And I'm gonna ask you a couple of questions or a couple of insights or tips that you can leave the audience with that they can implement straight away. What would you say?
I would say have a really good think about why you want to be in business. Like why you want to start this business. Is it to be the next Elon Musk and change the world? Elon Musk might be making money, but that's not the driver. Money is not the driver for this. It's about what is your why? What is it that you want to bring to the world and why do you want to do it? So have a really good think about that and just make it into a sentence and put that in front of you and that's what will drive you every day. And then what is your idea? What is your service or your product? And the next tip I would give you is go out and start trying to sell it, talk to people, do they want it, ask questions, because here's what you are. You're a detective. Now, I love detective shows. I love trying to figure out who the murderer is. And so you're a detective. You're going to ask questions. You're going to follow the leads. You're going to, you're going to listen to how people answer the questions. So you're a detective and your business is what you're trying to solve.
Beautiful. And I love the way you put that because it made me think of a podcast that I just recently listened to and they said, you know, the website Dropbox, famous website. When they started, they set up a little prototype or something of that nature. They launched it by some methods years ago. It was very, very, superficial in those days, the technology. And they found that overnight they had something like 70,000 clicks or views for that product. And then they realized this is a viable business. So let's go all in.
Let's go all in.
You've got to test it, in other words. Don't just think and hope it's going to work. Make sure that there's some, there's something, the market's telling you something.
Yeah. And I think there's another lesson to be learned in the movie industry and Apple is that they tease people for so long before they do that. Dropbox would have been teasing people before they launched that thing. They would have been asking the questions. They put out the trailers. It's like build the energy for it.
You're almost creating the need before it even happened, before you even need it.
Well, and that's, would we have had an iPhone if we'd, and as Henry Ford says, if I'd listened to what everybody told me, we would just have faster horses and, we've got cars. So, it's a little bit about listening to the market, but that's where the detective part comes in. You kind of have to put together the clues that don't look like they're real clues.
Absolutely. Fantastic. And now if everybody wants to get in touch with you, obviously I'm going to put all the notes and the links in the show notes, but tell us a bit about how we can get in touch with you.
Healthynumbers.com.au. LinkedIn, Ingrid Thompson is probably, we have the masterclass. If you want to do that, it's the bit.ly/BBB masterclass. Listen to my podcast. So you want to start a business. That's probably the best ways to contact me.
Fantastic. Well, Ingrid, thank you very, very much for being on the show.
Thank you, Darren. And thank you, everyone, for listening. And for those people who stayed live, I think, that's quite fantastic.
Live to my Facebook page. So thank you, everybody who's joined us there.
On a Tuesday afternoon, it's probably time to go and get a cup of tea. I think it's about that time of the afternoon, isn't it?
Yeah, indeed. So everybody out there, I hope you've learned a hell of a lot when it comes to business, thinking about what to ask and consider before you start a business. Think about the balance between your side hustle and your normal hustle. There's so much we've covered in this episode. And if anybody wants some coaching or some steering in the right direction, Ingrid is a fantastic person to go to. So Ingrid Thompson from Healthy Numbers. And everybody out there, thanks again for listening. And we'll be back for episode 46 tomorrow. So bye for now.